Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Taking Back Birth with myself as your host, Kristen Nagle. And I am very excited to bring on one of my friends, Elizabeth Cherevaty. And I was like, hope I pronounced that properly. I just realized I just call you Liz.
Yep.
And we met, I guess, like years ago. I was thinking Liam was Adley's size. I was probably still pregnant, actually, when we first met. And then really connected. So over six years ago now, I guess that
Yes.
would be, yeah,
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so Liz has been a mentor and friend, and the last time we were kind of united in speaking, we organized together with another girlfriend called the FU Summit, which was geared towards women, empowering them in their emotional, mental, physical health. The FU was, like the financial, the fertility, the fueling your body with, mindset and food. And it was actually a really beautiful conference. And I think it's so interesting that it was literally a month before the world ended,
Yes.
like February 2020. And who knew
Yes.
where things were going, like, just a few weeks later after that conference.
Yes. Things changed significantly. My world changed sooner than the broader world did, in that a few days after that, I found out I was pregnant with my one and only child. And so things really shifted for me from there. But that conference was momentum. I think it was 2/2/20.
Yes,
I
it
think it was
was.
February. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It had a significant date to it as well.
Yeah. And I remember
And
you were speaking about fuel. You were talking about really connecting to whole foods and nourishing from the inside out. And that was really,
mhm.
really special to hear your voice. And then, wow, what a stage opened up for you, Kristen, and in speaking your truth and being a real channel for truth and for inspiration and, yeah,
It's really
strength.
crazy to think about. I remember being so nervous, and I still get nervous every time I speak, but so nervous that I just stood straight up in front of all these women and just read straight from my cue cards. But so it's been quite the journey. Amazing to see where all that was going. One of the things I know, we were just kind of talking before we came on air, but we before we connected, I was thinking of just this little moment that happened during that conference, and I'm sure it's come up for a lot of women many times. But you lost your voice, or like you all of a sudden got a cough, and you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
continue speaking, and you had to
Yes.
like stop, get some water, and pause. And
Mm-hmm.
you had a name for that when something gets stuck in your throat and you're not able to get your voice or message out. I
Yes.
thought maybe you could share that.
Sure. And I'm not the originator of this term, but I can't say I know whose idea it is to call it this, but I said to everyone, have you ever heard of the witch wound?
Hmm.
And the idea being that truthful women who were healers, women who were seers, right, visionaries, who could kind of call things out, or who are speaking or leading, were often, with various terminology in various cultures and times in history, called witches, and were persecuted or worse, right? And shut down their voice in very literal ways. So it became quite scary and threatening to witness, and to be one who's called to share her voice, because when we're sharing our truth, it often doesn't correlate with the prevailing accepted paradigms of our time or our
Hmm.
community or culture. And I don't remember exactly the topic that we were talking about, but I know that it was regarding regarding stepping into our feminine power. Right.
Yes.
And that was I think the one of the last topics of the day. That was one of the F's of the FU summit that we put together, right? Feminine power. So and that is about a power that belongs to all of us as females, and that has in various times in history been systematically um, eaten away at, or worse, like again, like very violently and dramatically taken away from women who speak truth.
Mm-hmm.
And we could spend a whole a whole session chatting about that, but I did regain my voice, and I feel like that idea resonated with a lot of the women who were our participants and guests there. And I think it's almost a universal experience. And we have expressions in our language anywhere around it. Like, I lost my voice. I couldn't, I couldn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
My voice caught in my throat. That's the sensation.
Mm-hmm.
And it physically happened when I was up there on stage. Yes.
Yeah. And talking about, reclaiming our feminine power. And I think I wanted to start with that because I think it kind of sets the tone for, the things we're going to talk about with taking back birth. But we mentioned, even learning about our flow, reclaiming that, getting more in tune with our bodies. Because I feel, throughout decades, maybe even longer, we have, as women, there's been like an attack on the feminine. And I think, an attack on all of it, especially the family unit.
Mm-hmm.
But we're seeing that more and more on women specifically. And I think in your practice, you're probably, seeing that a lot with women that you work with. And then maybe as we start, maybe just give a quick introduction as to, who you are and, who you work with. And then I'll kind of segue back into that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm Liz, as Kristen mentioned. People call me Elizabeth or Liz. I'm a naturopathic doctor and creator of Well-Conceived Fertility, which is a comprehensive natural fertility support program that I have been offering through my practice and through one-to-one coaching for a number of years now. And I'm the author of IVF Meal Plan, which is teaching women and couples how to use the power of nutrition to increase their fertility and their outcomes with IVF in this case, but certainly more broadly fertility overall, using the power of food and nutrition. And I'm a mom, and I became a mom in 2020. And my son is 2.5 now as we speak, and he's just the most miraculous, the very best thing that I've ever done, contributed to, or borne witness to. And I'm very inspired to help everyone who wants to have a family or wants to have children to have them and to raise them up in vibrant well-being and in freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think we had a lot in common when we first met, Kristen, and I think both of our lives have transformed. You now have your little girl, Adley, and a lot has happened in between those two bookends of
Absolutely.
to 2020 and today. And so it's my pleasure to meet with you and to chat about all these things. And our feminine power really shows up inside of the fertility journey and certainly into pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I have practiced as a doula as well in the past, and have attended many births and had my own empowered childbirth and home birth. And that was for one single moment in my life, the single best thing that I've ever done. I said soon after, I want to do that again. It was so awesome. And I love the idea of anyone who wants that ecstatic, empowered, comforting, right, a supported birth to have it. I think it's good for moms, families, babies. And it's good for the world when women and kids are well and when families are well. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I realized I feel now so strongly, especially being at two polar ends of where I used to sit on the birthing world. But I do really feel with birth, it really does reclaim that feminine power. Then as like, as a mother and, reclaiming birth, but then able to raise your child, like I feel you just have this more trusting of your body, which allows
Yes.
you to be like, our bodies can do like the most difficult but amazing things. And we're okay, like going
Yeah.
through that. And then it makes you trust, like, okay, my children can go through,
Yeah.
hard, difficult things and they'll be okay. And I think it makes you more like less fearful of,
Yeah.
when maybe when they're hurt or, become ill or things like that. You kind of just trust the process more. But
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm,
We're made to heal. Like I always see that design. And recently, my son fell when we were playing outside, and he fell against a concrete block, and he had a gash across his brows, and we had to get stitches, and he had to be real brave. And someone said to me, a naturopathic doctor and close friend of mine said, because I was upset by that, in the days following, it's like you respond in the moment, but you see your little one going through something so hard and so painful and scary.
mhm,
And he's braver than both his dad and I put together. But you rise to the occasion, you do it. But then afterward, you're talking about it, and wow. And she said, we're made to be injured and to be healed and to heal. Like we're made to,
mhm,
we're built with the capacity that there can be injuries and there can be setbacks and there can be hurts, and then we heal.
mhm,
So it's a demonstration. Every little
mhm.
setback, every wound, every challenge is a call to pay attention, I think, to the miraculous nature of our innate healing design.
Which I wanted to get into this later on. I feel I'm gonna go kind of jump all over the place as I normally do, but I think that is probably a good segue into a topic that I had asked you before I texted you, and we're not going to spend too much time on it, but I asked you about endometriosis, and I said, because I just feel there's a lot of women around me right now, either that I know personally or that have contacted me, that seem to be experiencing um, endometriosis, and it's impacted their ability, to have conceive babies, to become pregnant, their health. It's painful.
Mm-hmm.
It's and kind of an awful experience from what I've heard, and interferes with their cycle and so on. And so I wanted to I was curious of your opinions of that, or if you knew much or saw many women, and if there's things that they can do to is it kind of be treated, or is it you have endo and that's it? And I feel like your segment of Our Bodies Are Made to Heal kind of leads into your answer to that.
Yeah, sure. So endometriosis, like when we considered from a, I guess, purely medical lens, is it's a process. It's a condition in which there's high inflammation level, and there's an interaction with that inflamed and inflammatory state with the hormones, specifically of the hormone fluctuations with a woman's cycle. So these it's effectively like tissue that the body would normally place and build inside the uterus cyclically, starting, even as a woman is having her period, there's an underlying build of the new endometrial lining for the next cycle, or truly for the next opportunity to conceive. So we're actually built to get pregnant. We're built to conceive. So even as you're having your menstrual period, your body's rebuilding the lining, the endometrial lining, or endometrium. And in endometriosis, that tissue is found in spots outside the uterus. And there's an inflammatory component. But what is that? What is inflammation? Inflammation is the immune system's language in which it's speaking and communicating and attempting to deal with something. It's attempting to respond to various types of stressors or triggers, or disharmonies. And so it's recognized that women with endometriosis can have significant amounts of pain, and that pain is correlated with emotional stress. To me, there's rarely an inflammatory focused condition that stress wouldn't actually make it worse as well. Since it's focused in the female reproductive system, it's kind of seated around that as a focus, and it's kind of like almost like a dysfunctional expression of that cyclical building of endometrial tissue. To me, there could be an energetic or emotional dimension to that, because so often women's bodies hold stress or trauma or the memory of in our reproductive system. And then interestingly, with endometriosis, the degree of pain or symptoms with endometriosis doesn't correlate with the degree of endometriosis. So the number of, or extent of these endometrial implants in other sites in the body, in the pelvis, for example, outside the uterus, that may or may not be painful relative to how much there is, and vice versa. So treating and managing the pain is like a first step, but that's not treating the root cause. And so it's important, and it's management, and it's quality of life. And then we start to look at what are the underlying root causes of what is pressuring that system to feel that it needs to express these inflammatory components and cause that pain and cause that abnormal or that growth of endometrium at abnormal sites. And yes, it is a factor with fertility with women, but looking at it more broadly, I'm always looking at sources of inflammation or hidden inflammation as a cause for why women or couples are having difficulty conceiving or maintaining pregnancy. Inflammation is the root cause of all chronic syndromes, but what is the root cause of inflammation? Well, we have to figure that out for the individual. And factors that it can be, and definitely include psychological stress in that's current, past trauma, poor nutrition, vitamin and nutrient deficiencies, oxidative stress, so exposure to toxins at a rate that is faster than your body is clearing them. And many of the toxins that have been released into the environment through industry in the past 100 years are endocrine disruptors. They're hormone disrupting chemicals that mimic hormones so they can activate hormone-like activities in abnormal ways. So it's not all about what the woman is or isn't doing right. Yeah. There's factors in her environment that are influencing her, but I believe in strengthening the resilience of every person that I work with, so that their body can resist that, clear it out, right, faster than it's coming in. We're never going to live a toxin-free life. We're never going to live a stress-free life, but we can feel more resilient inside of that, and healing is always possible.
Absolutely. And I think that's, key too, is knowing that we're never going to live toxin free or stress free, but it's like, how can we build up that resiliency within ourselves to live amongst, the toxic world that we're in or the stress that we're in? Like, how can our body level up to be able to live in the environments? And have you seen reversals? Have you seen in your practice with women?
Yeah, I mean, so reversal is an interesting question, because to visualize endometriosis, to really establish what is the extent of it, where is it happening, and how much implants of endometrium are you need to have a laparoscopy. So I don't do that in my practice. But symptom resolution and going from a diagnosis of endometriosis, and that's why you're having trouble getting pregnant, to pregnant and having a baby, yes.
Yeah.
Like, some women don't even realize they have endometriosis until later in life. like
Yes.
after they've had children. And
Mm-hmm.
many women experience a resolution of symptoms that they had preconception, and they never have endometriosis symptoms again after they have their baby.
Oh, that's interesting.
So these things are dynamic. They're not fixed. If you've been given a diagnosis of endometriosis, or any diagnosis for that matter, do not assume it as part of your identity. Do not
Mm-hmm.
let that be who you are. Right?
Mm-hmm. I think that can be like really daunting, right? Like a lot of the diagnosis and the labels, you do own it. I have, or,
Yeah.
and that becomes a part of you. So even that language continues to kind of perpetuate your experience of it,
Yeah.
instead of, I think changing the language of it is very important. So you
Yeah.
don't start identifying with it. So your body doesn't like cling onto it.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
mhm.
It's real. The body is listening to the images that we place in front of it through our mind, and the words that we choose trigger the images. So
Mhm.
the words are very important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So instead of saying, well, I have endometriosis and my doctor says that's going to impact my ability to have a baby. Okay. Well, you could also say, I'm like, my body is healing. I get more fertile every day, or I grow more fertile every month.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw an interesting, it was kind of posted up as like a meme, but from someone I enjoy listening to about, health and just how our body heals. And it said, it was very simple. It was like anti-inflammation is anti-healing. And I thought that was really interesting because I had to think about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many products now sold for, anti-inflammation, anti-this. And when you think about inflammation, like right now, I cut myself yesterday with kitchen knife, and it swells. You get that swelling, you get that initial blood flow, and you get the throbbing, and get that inflammation to send everything there to heal it, and then that goes down, and the wound is healed. That's just a tiny little example, but it's still the same thing that happens throughout our whole body.
Yeah.
Inflammation is there to bring healing to something. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh yeah, because you think of like my nutrition class, like turmeric. It was like, oh, turmeric is anti-inflammatory. Take this if you have sore joints, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, that's a very interesting concept. Of we don't necessarily want to be, anti-inflammation. We want to figure out why the body is inflamed, what
Yeah.
it's trying to heal, and then go to that root cause. And like you said, um, and support that in that
Yeah.
symptom. So I was like,
Yeah, exactly. So you can, you can you can hear the diagnosis, and then um, you can listen for other interpretations, and you can start to tell your body healing messages, and, experience gratitude that your body is producing symptoms that will give direction to you to help you heal,
mhm,
because symptoms are produced as communication. We listen to them, and they point us in the direction of what resources can we input, what obstacles can we move out of your way to help you come home to the lived reality of your innate design, which is to heal and be well.
mhm,
And then you can also adopt actions like gathering tools and inputs and practitioners or resources or communities that support your values and how you want to live. There's nothing wrong with taking turmeric. It's like for that example, it's not toxic. It benefits the liver. Yes, it's full of antioxidants. Might even help clear up your skin.
oh, lost Liz. I wonder if she was getting phone call. There you go.
Okay. If I went off there for a second, sorry. I was just getting a phone call on my
Yeah, that's
phone.
okay. That was happening to me earlier too. And then I got Miss Adley. If anyone hears that in the background, it is Adley tooting over here. So just tooting and pooping on my lap. So that's background noise as well. Anyway, sorry, Liz, go
Oh,
ahead.
sure. Blame it on the baby.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly.
So, so turmeric, but like if we're not exploring the root cause of what is really causing those source of it, those inflammation, that pain, then you're going to be taking turmeric for an indeterminate period of time to get the relief, but you're not resolving the underlying drivers of why that symptom had to be produced in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting when I had to think about that. And I was like, oh yeah, because yeah, like you said, turmeric and all these things are amazing. You know, they're healthy. There's so many great components to it, but it depends why you're taking it. And if you're taking it to try to heal something, or to, suppress, or relieve symptoms, like you said, it might feel better in the short term, but you're not getting to the root cause. And I think that's kind of important to kind of realize too, with anything that you're doing. Is it trying to cover up symptoms, or are you getting to the root cause of it? And I think that kind of a lot goes back to being connected to our bodies, listening to our bodies, and knowing, exactly what's happening. And I kind of made the comment and joke earlier about how disconnected, women, not all women, but I think a lot, from are disconnected from ourselves and knowing our bodies, and
Yeah.
and knowing even just our cycles, which has a lot to do with fertility. Oh, you're not happy right now. And I made the comment about, someone asked me, while I was pregnant, because it was going to kind of give a guess of when Adley was going to be born. And they asked, oh, well, how long is your luteal phase? And I was like, I don't even know if I'm sure exactly what phase that is of my cycle, nor do I know how long it is. And this was a portion of one of your talks at the FU Summit, was about, women's cycles and how we need to connect to them and honor them, and what it says about us. And if we learn to understand our cycles, we can learn to, productive is not the right word, but yeah, to be in, to be thriving in life is probably what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, there's really no, kind of cultural inputs for us around the very, very cool beneficial nature of having a cycle, and how it does kind of pace out our capacities, and the interaction of different hormones, or different ratios of hormones on our neurological system, our brain. It can bring out our innate capacities in stronger ways. For example, many women will feel more confident or creative or even productive, maybe need a little bit less sleep than usual around their ovulation time. And that makes sense for nature, because, again, we're designed to get pregnant and reproduce. We're designed to have children, and getting out there and having a little more stamina, a little more energy, a little more extroversion, interest in interacting with others, could increase the chances of being with an appropriate partner to make that conception happen. We're all like, the female body is just completely showing, it's total evidence that we're designed to be fertile. And so that's what I see when I work with someone. I see their fertility. I've been saying lately, and I don't know if it's going to sound controversial, but I don't believe in infertility anymore. I just don't believe in it. I believe in your fertility. And so when you're having challenges to bring that into a lived reality of getting pregnant and having a healthy baby, then where it's like, okay, what is happening within and around you that is creating a disharmony between between your design and what we're seeing in in the material world. So a great resource on reflecting your hormones and understanding your cycle, especially from a like a career perspective, is Miranda Gray's book called The Optimized Woman. Yeah, and she she shows the cycle into different phases. So she talks about it as seasons. And I found that really illustrative, and it's such a great metaphor. And so females have a cycle. We have different things happening for us and therefore for our families and our workplaces and our communities, depending on where we are in our cycle. And men don't have a cycle, so our culture is running a lot on the masculine. It's a Monday to Friday. It's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or it's a 9 to 5, and you're meant to like work at a certain setting all day and then have a lunch break and da da da. But women have a different cycle. So in 1 week, you might have a pretty high energy. You might be ready to go and present. You might feel like going and meeting new people or joining a club or going out and playing sports or lifting weights and feeling really confident and having interviews, right? And 2 weeks later, you might feel very inward and quiet and reflective and like like having your mystique, because it's like you're starting a new cycle then. So there's something precious building that's safely and subtly inside you, and it's not the season for that to be shown and out in the world yet. It's a season for you to rest, recuperate, and reestablish your energy so that you can fuel and sustain those higher energy output times. Yeah.
I think that it was really beautiful that, talking about it, when you're like looking at it with, spring, summer, and then you go fall, winter, and you think of like, okay, you're in, the summer energetic, you're ovulating stage versus the winter, the dormant coming inward. There was a really funny thing I saw last night, and it was just a quick little reel I came across, and it was someone, just looked cozy and sitting at their computer, and they're like, who scheduled in all this, like filled up my calendar, and it was like, dressed up, her version all dressed up, and she's like, it was me, it was like, ovulating me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time it seems like a great idea, and I think we can probably have all experienced that, where it's like at the time it's like, yes, I can do that, yes, like we'll do that, book me in next week, okay, perfect. And then when it comes around to it, it's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling up to all that. And
yeah,
I
I'm
think,
sitting at home and eating English muffins and with chocolate on it and watching a movie. So, and
exactly.
also sleeping for 9 or 10 hours instead of my usual 7 or 8, and I
Yeah.
can't fit that in.
No, and then I think when you know that, again, it's honoring your body and yourself. But you did this for women in business, but it's like, okay, if you know you're going to be high energy here, like fill up that time. And once you know your cycle, then okay, less stuff in this, like, put in different things that can be quiet or less demanding. And then just like, then you can really schedule yourself with that flow, and it allows for you to thrive, when you might be less patient. And I think it's really important probably for mothers as well to kind of know with their kids like what they're going to be. Oh, Missy, she has I'm going to call, you need a change. It's we had an explosion, so we're going to see what we can do.
Okay.
Yes. But one of the next things going in, I might have to call the reinforcements. I'm going to have to rename this the Adley show, I think. I'm going to get her changed in 1 second, but I'm going to allow you to talk while I get her settled. So once I think you move in, you understand your cycle, you understand, you kind of learn how to connect to yourself. And I think when you do that, you can learn more about noticing changes and things within your body as well, which will help things heal. So women are coming to you. What phase are women coming to you to see you? When do they notice that maybe there's something concerning, if that's the right word to use, or they come for extra guidance?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, many of my patients and fertility coaching clients come and we start working together when they have sort of tried what to them is their full gamut of more medical options. and they just didn't feel like it was a fit for them. They felt like a number. They felt
Okay,
wrong.
you keep going, Liz. I'm just going to pop off the screen for 1 second.
No problem. So I'll just, for the purposes of those watching, I'll just take over, and it's all good. That's real life as a mom. So I was just saying that when folks come to start working with me, we are looking at how to help them as a whole person to live their most well life. So I call it well-conceived fertility, because it's all about strengthening those pillars of health and well-being that invariably help with fertility, and using the benefits of science and of traditional wisdom to integrate that into her or the couple's fertility journey and preconception season. So preconception planning is actually a really important opportunity. So even we're actually flip the dialogue. So even if they've been struggling with their fertility, we're going to flip that into saying, let's take a few months and really focus in on strengthening your fertility, because everything that we do for your fertility is good for you. It's good for your spouse. It's good for the success of your fertility treatments. If you're doing IUI or IVF, sometimes it removes the need for those in the first place. Many of my clients are not interested in pursuing IVF or IUI, and they, even though it's been presented to them as the next step medically, because they're just not clear of that, why they would need that in the first place. They have been given a diagnosis of unexplained infertility. And to me, that just suggests, okay, we need to optimize their health. And when we optimize their health in all the way, holistically, we will optimize their fertility. So Kristen, you're muted. Do you want me to keep speaking about the journey there, the journey from start to... No, we can't hear you now. You're still muted. Uh-oh. Kristen's frozen.
Oh, I unmuted. Oh,
there you
that's
go.
why. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm still working out, like, yeah, I'm still working out nap times and how to have like these conversations. And every time I think, it's a good time, as you know, because you're a mom, it's like whenever we think we've figured something out, it is not.
I feel
So
like there was like maybe 6 or 8 weeks that it was so reliable. Like I could do meetings or whatever, and then after that there was just a lot more dynamics, and no,
yeah,
it wasn't realistic. But for like, this is totally fine.
yes. I was like, well, it is about taking back birth, and this is a part of it, of just trying to ebb and flow in real life, and that's okay. And poor baby girl, she's just getting her bum changed now, because I was like, oh yeah, I got, and that's real life too. You got the poop all over the shirt. I was like, at least it's up here. I'm just like, yeah, but it's okay. But so thank you for being able to continue on while I was sorting that out.
Sure.
I will apologize. I'm not sure where we kind of left off with that, but so I might need you to guide the next portion while we pick back up here.
Yeah, sure. So you had asked, where do people usually start when we meet at first, and so I was talking a bit about that. Basically, they found that the medical only model was either incomplete for them or not a fit. Yeah.
Okay.
So we integrate the benefits of scientific studies and research, but we also recognize her or the couple as a whole person or whole people. Mm-hmm. And that it's about restoring that harmony and that resilience in all of the pillars of fertility, and that includes emotional and physical and even energetic and even epigenetic factors and it's, I think people are ready for transformation
Hmm.
when we're working together.
Absolutely.
They're asking for something to be different.
And I think that's the key word. They're asking for something different. And you kind of mentioned that in the recap for me. Thank you. And I was thinking, and that goes the same with birth, with so many things happening right now, is we've been, accustomed to using the conventional system, the allopathic system, and they have, failed us in one way or another. With my co-founder of Canadian Frontline Nurses, Sarah has a very powerful story of healing herself from fibromyalgia. She went into the system. They had no idea. All these tests wanted to prescribe her on like gabapentin, like all these neuro drugs for, long term. And she's like, forget that. Like, I'm going to take matters in my own hands, and healed herself. And I think this is happening on so many different levels with fertility, feeling let down, with, any kind of chronic illness or lifestyle. And especially with birth, it's a lot of women have gone into the system, been traumatized by the service that they received, and
Mm-hmm.
want to experience something different, knowing that it can be different. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I didn't even realize it could be different until learning about it. And then it was like, oh, I feel like robbed of not knowing the options.
Yeah.
And I think that's also how a lot of people feel too, is we've been so programmed to believe there's only one way.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to reclaim that on so many levels with, finding
Mm-hmm.
something different. So I think it's amazing, to build these relationships with parents. And I feel there's probably, there's an urgency, when you want to start a family and it's not happening on your timeline, it can become very sad, depressing, heartbreaking. Each month has its own devastation every
Yeah.
time, to relive that.
Yeah.
And I think, with a lot of things, we go into the system wanting these quick fixes. And I would imagine when couples work with you, it might not be a quick fix, but it's a long-term solution. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that journey looks like. It's probably different for every couple that comes to work with you. Maybe some, it's a little bit faster or longer, or I don't know if you can share some of the outcomes that they've had after working with you.
Yeah. So the first three stages that I walk my clients and couples through are discover, nourish, and cleanse. So in discover, we're discovering their fertility. So we're looking not only for like things that haven't actually been tested that are relevant to their fertility, like even I'm talking about even couples that have been through multiple rounds of IVF. There is almost always areas of assessment like basic blood work that could have been done, that should have been done, that we do, that identifies some of the reasons why there isn't optimal fertility and why they've landed in the medical treatment of infertility in the first place. So, for example, vitamin D deficiency, hidden thyroid disorders, thyroid autoimmunity, other autoimmune conditions, um, hormonal imbalances that aren't really um, finely addressed, or because the attitude of the medical version is we're going to hijack your cycle anyway. They're going to use
Mm-hmm.
strong hormonal based drugs to elicit ovulation or push the body into ovulating, for example. Um, and they don't really, it's not part of their process to ensure that a woman's cycle and hormones are fine tuned going into it so that it will work better. It's more like a lottery, like, well, every cycle we have a 30% chance of success, and that's better than, whatever they consider it to be naturally, which is usually 5%, they say, of a given cycle you have a chance to conceive. By the way, that seems a lot lower than what we're taught in elementary and high school about when we're taught how to not get pregnant, because it is so darn easy to get pregnant, right? So there's just a different paradigm, and there's nothing wrong with using IUI, IVF, fertility clinic, fertility specialist. It can be very effective, and it can be necessary in many cases. In many cases, it's not. In many cases, it's just, and these aren't my patients, but many people just want it on their timeline, and they are willing to put the funds in and to create an embryo and have it transferred, and they want it on a certain time frame, and they're not comfortable to have any less sense of control. The medical approach gives a sense of control, but there is actually not control about conception, fertility, pregnancy, birth, da 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 da. It's not something that we can control. It's a false sense of control, but that is some people's one of their top values. So the folks that are working with me, their values are feeling empowered, feeling good, feeling well, feeling happy, feeling like it's natural, feeling connected to their partner even as they conceive, feeling, even if they're using IVF, but feeling connected to herself and to her partner. That's important. Where you're bringing a child in, there's a certain energy that my patients want to have supporting that. So it's a different quality. It's very complementary. So everything that we do with naturopathic interventions will support the success of medical treatment. It's not that you have to choose one or the other. But some of my patients they either want a break from all of that. It was too much. It was very stressful. It was very disappointing. They felt like a number, and they've invested a lot financially, emotionally, physically, and not had a successful result. So it's kind of then going back to a new starting point and saying, okay, why would we have needed that in the first place if we're all built to get pregnant? I think people intuitively know that. That's how we all got here. That's every species. Like, every species has to reproduce, and that's why we're here. So we have the imprint, we have the DNA, we have the ancestry to reproduce. And so what we're doing is we're fine tuning to allow that fertility to shine through. I think there's probably, when there are fertility issues in any species, alarm goes up. If it's a community, like let's say in the 60s and 70s, there in the Great Lakes region, so between southern Ontario and like some of the north, western United States that are around the Great Lakes, they had a significant drop off in bird fertility. And it's because the pesticides, like the DDT specifically, that was leaching into the water, it was being taken up into the fish and then into the birds, especially the birds of prey that would eat the fish. And then the birds of prey, their eggs were soft. The pesticide contamination in their bodies led to them not being able to have strong eggs, and that their chicks can't survive with that. So that brought a lot of attention, and there was efforts made by people, in that region, to stop using that DDT locally, and the bird population has come back.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So when there are fertility issues, we must pay attention. We must pay attention to that. But it's not just about like putting a sperm and egg together and like letting an embryo grow for a few days and then planting. We have to do something about the pregnancy environment. We have to do something about the quality of the egg and the sperm that are coming together to create that embryo, whether it's in vitro or naturally. Preconception is a season of a few months before egg and sperm come together that there's a lot of development chromosomally in those cells. So we, discovering our fertility being the first stage that I take my patients through, I show them that there is this window of golden opportunity to invest not only in your fertility success, but in your future baby's health. Because the egg, which is 50% of your future baby's DNA, and the sperm, and the other 50%, are undergoing an incredible amount of transformation and development in those 3 months or so before conception. And so, for example, in eggs, the common paradigm is you're born with all your eggs that you'll ever have for your life, and they're just aging and aging and aging as you age. That is one version as one version. I like the version, and science supports a different version. The reality is that the eggs are paused in meiosis, which is the rearrangement of chromosomes. And in the months before a particular egg will end up being ovulated, or in the case of IVF, be among those to be retrieved under the influence of those medications and procedures, we're opening up the book. We're opening up the final manuscript for editing. Okay, so we want the best editors, the best minds, the best resources to be invested in that particular manuscript for that timing that it's about to be published. Okay, so it's in that time, if the eggs are equipped with the right amount of nutrients and energy, they have an a built-in DNA self-repair process. Okay, that they will overcome chromosomal breakages or abnormalities. And then meiosis finishes and the egg is ready for ovulation or conception. In men, sperm it takes 3 months to make sperm. It's hard to imagine that we're not taught all of this in school.
Yes.
It takes 3 months to make sperm. In that time, the sperm cells are in development. They're becoming a 23 chromosomes to match the egg's 23 chromosomes. They start with like a cell of 46 chromosomes, no tail. And they become a 23 chromosomes with a tail in about 3 months. It's amazing. So, and the man's body is continually developing sperm. So in the 3 months before a particular sperm meets up with an egg, it has been exposed to the man's physiology, which is the man's health. And sperm are exquisitely sensitive to their environment. They need a lot of energy too. And they can be exposed to oxidative stress, i.e. like toxins in the environment that are circulating through the man's physiology too. And they're subject to nutrient deficiencies or hormone imbalances, just like women's bodies are. So we bring both partners into healthy physiology, into harmony with their innate design, and we're doing optimization. So even if a couple hasn't been given a diagnosis, like let's say she doesn't have endometriosis or PCOS or a thyroid condition or celiac, like one of those things that is, medically associated with infertility, we're still taking like pretty good and we're optimizing it. So we are absolutely acknowledging and helping with conditions that are diagnosed or that are identified, but we're also building on health so that you're giving your child their very healthiest start in life. So it's a win-win-win. It's great for mom, it's great for dad, and it's great for baby.
Absolutely. I remember like learning, I think when I was in nutrition school, and I was like shocked, how babies, they found, I think almost 300 different types of chemicals in their umbilical cord at birth. And it's amazing to think, that that's what we're taking in our environment and passing on. So why wouldn't you want to optimize as much as you could, knowing that all of that is being passed on to baby, is optimizing your health on both sides, as much as you can. And I also thought it wasn't until I think this year that I got challenged on, you're born with all your eggs. And then I started seeing some posts and research, and it was like, actually, no, they are like recreating, like you can end up with more eggs, or they're always there. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like it's fascinating to me, the things that we just never question. We're just told and we just accept it. And then all of a sudden it was like, why wouldn't we be able to continue being, fertile? Why would we just be born with all the eggs we're ever going to have? Like that just doesn't make sense, considering how cells in our bodies are always regenerating and
That's right.
repairing and everything. And it just, when I heard that, it just like, I was like, oh yeah, like that doesn't make sense at all. It challenged that thought. And so I think that's really interesting, and it's a lot more beautiful and hopeful for those, trying to create a family, to hear that. I think that's another thing the medical system does is puts that fear, that timeline, right? Like, oh, better hurry up. That clock is ticking. Like, where did that come from? And then at 35 years old, you start being labeled as geriatric pregnancy. Your eggs are getting old. Like it doesn't, from what we know about health and how to sustain health, and that age is a myth. Like you might get older in the years you've been here on the earth, but it doesn't mean that your health has to deteriorate with it. So I just think it's fascinating, all these lies that we're told. And you had said something else about how we are made to be fertile. And, that's how we've got here all this time. That's how we keep being here on this earth, is because we're made to be fertile. Just like I think we're also meant to, to birth. That's what we're meant to do. And that's how we got here. Like obviously, right? We're fertile beings that can birth our babies and continue to keep, growing in generations and continuing on. And it's fascinating that within 100 years or so, medical system has just come right in and put in that fear of, you're infertile, all these labels, and you can't birth, like you need our services. Why all of a sudden in the last probably less than 100 years, or about 100 years, do we need medical services to do these things that we have always been doing? And it's not improving anything. Just like childhood immunizations, whole other topic, but it's not improving our children's health. Like women are more traumatized in the birth world. There's more infertility, and our children are more sick than ever before. And what's the common denominator? Like this medical system and all the poisons and all these things being pushed at us versus sticking to our ancestral roots, and the fear. It's crazy. So I think it's really inspiring, and and I hope people feel empowered by this conversation, knowing that they can take their health back in their own hands. There are things that they can do, and I think that's the most important. And it sounds like with working with you, they are being responsible for their health and their bodies. It's not handing it over for someone else to to fix. It's becoming your own expert and making the changes within your life that are going to be long term and sustaining. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's where more people are going with everything, is reclaiming and bringing it back to themselves in all aspects.
Yeah, really, and fertility awareness is such a great tool that focuses on those themes. Like knowing when in your cycle you're fertile and can conceive is part of our power. Right? And so many of us, I mean, I didn't even fully master that in naturopathic medicine. I took special training, like courses on fertility awareness, to learn and be able to teach this to my patients. And of course, to know it myself. It's the first thing that we should learn about when we're learning about like health class in grade 4 or whatever. It's like how fertility works. When in their cycle are you fertile? It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's amazing. And everything about our male and female physiology is geared toward that moment, right? And about that moment of conception, and about giving and bringing new life. It's just it's the focus of our bodies. It's amazing. And so fertility awareness, learning how to follow and know the signs that you're fertile and your fertility window is opening up, And then when is it closed for that particular month? Like, it brings a lot of empowerment and relief to women. And it's also a very fine-tuned sign of like how we're doing. So I always ask about the cycle. It's more, all the details, not just when was your period and when is your day 3 and how many days do you bleed and all that, but like, when do you see those shifts in your cervical fluid? Or if she's charting her temperatures, when is that happening? Are the temperatures stable within the follicular and luteal phases? So circling back to the luteal phase question, it's a question I get a lot, because luteal phase is also known as the 2-week wait. So luteal phase is the 2 weeks after you ovulate and hopefully had sex, or in the case of IVF, you had your transfer, and then you're waiting about 2 weeks to see if you're pregnant or not. And that's the phase it's called luteal, because its focus is as progesterone produced by the corpus luteum, which is in your ovary. Why is it in your ovary? Because it used to be the sac, the follicle, it's called, that held the egg that was ovulated. And then it became, that sac became, the egg was released and the sac became the corpus luteum, a progesterone producing machine. Progesterone, pro-gestation, pro-pregnancy hormone. We're built to be pregnant. We're built to birth. It's miraculous every time.
It's really beautiful when you put it that way. And I had an interesting conversation with someone about a month ago, I believe, and we were talking about babies and birth and periods, and it all came out, obviously, a group of mothers, and one of the things someone said was that they believe that periods were made from the devil, because it doesn't bring joy, it's painful, it's kind of death, like it's an egg being released, and I forget the other reasons, and I didn't agree with it, and I think if you have that belief, it's has to come with the disconnect that we've that's happened to us over the years, because just the way you describe that, if you understand your body, which we used to follow the moon cycles, we used to be so connected to nature with our cycles, even I think the months, I think there used to be 13 months in the 28 days in the month, like they've changed it all to mess us up from knowing our cycles, or we used to follow the moon, and we
that's right.
Connected. And as we're more connected, it is beautiful, because it's like, okay, well, like we know when to honor our bodies, when we are full of energy, when to be more quiet, when to nurture ourselves, and then it's like, oh my gosh, but our bodies are made for life, like there's life capabilities in there, like life force, like we are like bringers of life into this world, and how could that not be miraculous? And I think it can be devastating, though, for those trying to conceive, and each month seeing the blood each month is, I think, a very psychological, it can be damaging, like just emotionally hard. But when you don't have that emotional attachment to it, it's like, okay, it's like a cleansing of the body. Okay, we get to start all over again. Okay, spring and summer is coming, and then it's like then we go down into winter, and then it's like we're cleansing again and renewing, and when we honor those cycles, it even the bleeding phase can be very beautiful and powerful too.
And it represents renewal, and the next opportunity to rebuild is already happening, like by day 2 of our period. The new lining is already building, even while this current lining is shedding.
Which I think is amazing, just for our bodies, that what a message of hope to hold on to, is that our bodies are always renewing itself. There's always growth and renewal and repair and regeneration, and I don't know, I think that's pretty amazing. I'm just always so fascinated by every aspect of our body, the more I learn about each physiological component. And I do have, over the last 3 years, I've developed a strong faith that I'm continuing to work at to be stronger in. But for me, I just think like, how can there be, and not everyone will agree with me, and that's okay. But I just think, how can there not be a creator? Like, we're just designed so complex, with every little thing has been like thought out, every detail. And I just think it's so amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would love every woman and couple who wants to have a baby to start seeing your body, start to own the identity that you are your baby's perfect home.
Mm-hmm.
You are your baby's perfect home. In Asian medicine, it's called the baby the uterus is called the baby palace.
No, I love that. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're already built to have all of the infrastructure and the architecture and the love to support that baby. So yeah, I just want to help as many as we can to arrive home at that, the truth of our design, which is to be fertile and to be well. And yeah, treating our periods and our cycles more as an proof of our fertility, right? Having a cycle proves it's one of the evidences of your fertility. And then we get to build on what's already good and what's already working well.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, I think we should wrap up. I think little Adley's been okay now. I can hear just kind of calm down. She probably fell asleep, which is good. I knew she was getting a little tired. But is there any lasting message you would like to leave our audience, and then let them know where they can find you if there's people listening that would love to work with you in the future?
Oh, sure. I guess I'll say, do get the support and resources that you need to start believing in your fertility, and seeing fertility, seeing signs of, right? You're designed to become pregnant, conceive, and birth your baby. The first one might be having your period. That might be one evidence that you can reframe your perception of, to say, okay, I'm having my period. That means I'm creating a new opportunity to conceive now. I'm releasing the past cycle. The past cycle does not relate to this current cycle. That's in the past. Proof, like having a bleed is the proof that the cycle is past. So now let's build in and make this cycle the most successful, the most nourished, the most connected possible. And then people can find me through my Instagram, which is dr.elizabeth.cherevaty, or my clinics, which is at Two Rivers Health, and on my website, which is tworivershealth.ca. And I have an email form in there. You can just go contact and send me a message if you want to connect that way.
Perfect. And I'll make sure when this gets posted to post all those links along with it. It's been very nice chatting with you again, Liz. It's so nice to see your face, and hopefully we'll be able to connect in person at some point in the near future, that our paths will cross again. But it's just really nice to have this conversation with you.
Oh, I appreciate it so much, Kristen. And it was great to see Adley there for a little bit. You're doing an amazing job, Mama.
Oh, thank you. You too. All right. Well, everyone, thank you very much for listening, and tune back in next week to Taking Back Birth. All right, everyone. Good night.